You slept for 8 full hours last night, maybe even 9, and still woke up drained. Not the ordinary tiredness a second cup of coffee can quietly fix by mid-morning. This is the kind of tiredness sitting behind your eyes before your feet touch the floor. It is the kind that keeps you staring at the ceiling, wondering why rest feels hollow now. Meanwhile, in a quiet apartment somewhere in Kyoto, a woman named Yuki is already awake. It is barely 5 in the morning, and she never set an alarm clock. She went to sleep at 9:30, and her body simply finished on its own. She woke up the way sleep is supposed to end, softly, without any dragging feeling. She's not sleeping longer than you. She's actually sleeping less. 7.5 hours most nights, yet she wakes up more rested than you after 9. The real difference between her sleep and yours has almost nothing to do with hours. It has everything to do with what happens before her eyes ever close at night. There is a hidden window most sleep advice completely ignores while chasing supplements and expensive gadgets instead. 5 quiet practices your body was designed for, but modern life slowly stripped away. By the time this ends, you will understand exactly why 8 hours still leaves you empty. And the very last idea on this list may be the real reason you keep waking up tired. Here is something no supplement, no mattress, and no sleep app has ever told you plainly. The real problem almost certainly is not your sleep itself at all. It is what happens in the hours leading up to it every single night. Most of us walk through our days in a low-grade state of constant nervous activation. Unread messages, unfinished tasks, a mind that never fully powers down or relaxes. Then, at 10 or 11 at night, we expect the body to switch off instantly. We want it to hand back energy we never actually gave it time to build. The nervous system does not have a simple off switch like a light. It has a dimmer. And for most people, that dimmer stays stuck on high for years. Japan has some of the lowest rates of chronic sleep disorders anywhere in the world. That has nothing to do with genetics and nothing to do with apartment size either. Researchers keep finding a set of quiet, deeply embedded cultural habits around evening hours. None of them expensive, none complicated, and none requiring anything you do not already own. 5 of those exact habits are what we're walking through together right now. The very first one will make you question something you have done every evening for years. Most people eat dinner somewhere between 6:30 and 9 at night without thinking twice. Then they climb into bed only 2 or 3 hours after finishing their very last bite. Almost nobody has ever been told why that timing quietly damages the entire quality of sleep. Here is the actual mechanism working against you every single night without your awareness or consent. Digestion demands real energy, so your body redirects blood flow toward your stomach for hours. That process runs warm, and your core body temperature rises steadily while digestion continues working hard. Sleep, on the other hand, requires the exact opposite condition from your body to function properly. For your brain to reach deep, restorative stages where real repair actually happens, temperature must drop. That drop is the biological signal telling your brain it is finally safe to descend. When you eat close to bedtime, you force your body to do 2 things simultaneously. Digest a heavy meal while also trying to cool down enough to enter deep sleep. It cannot manage both tasks well, so your body quietly compromises and shortchanges your rest. You end up technically asleep, but never sinking into the depth that leaves you truly restored. Researchers studying circadian rhythms have called meal timing one of the most overlooked variables in sleep science. A gap of at least 3 hours, ideally 4, produces measurably deeper and more restorative sleep. In Japan, this earlier eating pattern is not a hack. It is simply everyday normal life. If you move your last meal earlier and protect that gap before bed tonight, everything changes. That is the first practice, and it does not cost you a single extra rupee. But here comes something even more interesting, something happening inside your brain without your permission nightly. The second practice involves a hormone that has been quietly stolen from you for years now. Your brain runs on an internal chemical clock, and its most important timekeeper is called melatonin. Melatonin is the signal telling every cell in your body that darkness has finally arrived outside. It rises slowly over 1 or 2 hours as light levels naturally fall each evening. For hundreds of thousands of years, that signal stayed beautifully simple, just sunlight fading into true darkness. Then, humanity invented bright screens and started holding them inches from our faces nightly. The blue light emitted by phones and televisions gets interpreted by your eyes as daylight. Not dim artificial light, but genuine daylight, tricking your entire biological system into staying falsely alert. Every single evening, most of us send our nervous system a signal resembling bright summer afternoon sunshine. Then we wonder helplessly why sleep refuses to come once we finally put the phone down. Studies on evening blue light exposure found melatonin onset delayed by as much as 3 hours. That means your body's chemical preparation for sleep was pushed back, even though bedtime stayed the same. The sleep that followed in those studies was shorter, shallower, and noticeably less restorative than normal rest. In Japan, the philosophy of simplicity called kanso shapes how evenings quietly feel inside most homes. Dimmer lighting, quieter rooms, and screens powered down earlier all signal the day is ending. You do not need to throw your phone away or abandon technology completely to fix this. Simply dimming every screen after 8 at night removes that false daylight signal from your evening. This costs nothing, yet it stops confusing your brain while it tries desperately to prepare for rest. The third practice sounds almost too simple to matter until you fully understand the science behind it. Every night before bed, take a warm bath or shower, not a rushed 2-minute rinse. Give yourself a real soak, 10 to 15 minutes. Warm water, absolutely no need to hurry through it. When warm water touches your skin, your blood vessels dilate and blood rushes toward the surface. Your skin temperature rises noticeably, and then something remarkable happens the moment you step back out. As surface warmth dissipates into cooler air, your actual core body temperature begins dropping quickly. That exact drop is the biological signal your brain depends on to trigger deep, genuine sleep. You are essentially tricking your own body into the temperature state it needs on your schedule. Sleep researchers found that a warm bath taken an hour or two before bed shortens sleep onset noticeably, not because of vague relaxation, but because of this very specific mechanism of heat and cooling. In Japan, the deep soaking bath called ohuro, taken hotter and longer than typical Western baths, remains routine. It exists not merely to get clean, but deliberately to prepare the body properly for rest. The water figured out this exact mechanism long before modern science ever caught up to explain it. Now comes the fourth practice, one connecting directly back to everything we already discussed about your nervous system. We said earlier the real problem is your nervous system's inability to power down before sleep. We covered food timing, we covered light exposure, and we covered temperature and its powerful effects. But there remains one more variable, and it might be the single most powerful factor of all. Your body needs a clear signal that the day has genuinely ended, not merely a vague suggestion. Something physical, repeated nightly, and fully predictable that your nervous system learns to recognize instantly. Most people never build any such signal into their evenings at all, ever, consistently, or intentionally. We work until exhausted, scroll until heavy-eyed, then collapse into bed hoping tiredness alone does the job. Exhaustion does eventually produce sleep, but rarely the kind of sleep that actually restores your body fully. The Japanese concept called yoru no shizukesa, meaning the quiet of evening, is not about forced meditation. It is simply a set of small, repeated behaviors sending your nervous system one consistent message nightly. The day is finished, and it is now completely safe for your body to come down. For Yuki in Kyoto, that signal is exactly three simple things repeated every single night without exception. She brews a cup of roasted barley tea, naturally caffeine-free, warm and slightly nutty tasting. She drinks it slowly at her kitchen table, with absolutely nothing else demanding her divided attention. She writes 3 short sentences in a small notebook, capturing one moment worth remembering from today. Then she lays out everything needed for tomorrow morning: her bag, her clothes, and her keys. 30 minutes, 3 simple things, done in the exact same predictable order every single night without fail. Here is what those 30 quiet minutes are actually accomplishing deep inside your nervous system every evening. Consistency in pre-sleep behavior trains your nervous system to treat those actions as a conditioned cue, the way a familiar scent instantly triggers a memory before conscious thought even has time to form. Over time, the ritual itself becomes the actual signal, and your body starts responding before you finish tea. Cortisol drops, heart rate slows, and your nervous system begins descending simply because it learned exactly what follows. Research on sleep quality has consistently found that a steady pre-sleep routine predicts restfulness better than almost anything else. Not a supplement, not a fancy device, just a small ritual repeated faithfully every single night without exception. Build your own version, keep it small, and keep it perfectly identical every night without changing the order. Which brings us to the 5th and final practice, the one mentioned earlier that almost nobody discusses openly. There is a concept in Japanese thought called ma, essentially the meaningful pause that gives everything around it weight. Applied directly to sleep, ma means something surprisingly specific about how your entire morning actually begins. The first 20 to 30 minutes after waking are not the true beginning of your day. They still belong to the night before, and how you treat them shapes how rested you genuinely feel. Regardless of total hours slept, here is exactly what happens inside most ordinary bedrooms every single morning. The instant an alarm sounds, the phone charging inches from the pillow gets immediately picked up. Notifications from the entire night before get scrolled through within the very first minutes of consciousness. Before a single foot has even touched the floor, your nervous system already received a long list demanding urgent reaction. Researchers studying something called sleep inertia, that groggy transition state right after waking, found something genuinely important here. The quality of that transition affects your mood and perceived energy for the remainder of your entire day. Interrupted early with high stimulation, and your brain never actually completes that necessary transition properly at all. You spend the rest of the morning stuck in a slight haze, not quite awake, not quite present. Let that transition complete quietly instead, and your brain finally finishes what sleep originally started the night before. Yuki does not check her phone during the first 30 minutes after waking, and never forces this rule. To her, those 30 minutes are simply the most valuable part of the entire day, quiet and unclaimed. So here is what genuinely happens once you combine every single one of these 5 practices together consistently, not as a rigid program to track obsessively, but as a natural rhythm your evenings slowly settle into. You eat earlier, freeing your body's temperature to drop naturally the moment you finally ask it to sleep. You dim the lights around you so your internal chemical clock stops running hours behind actual daylight. You take a warm bath, giving your body the exact physiological cue needed to sink into deep sleep. You build one small, consistent ritual so your nervous system finally has something reliable to follow into rest. And you protect those first 30 minutes each morning so the sleep you already got is allowed to finish. None of this demands more time than the mindless scrolling you are probably already doing every single night. None of it costs you anything meaningful, only the decision to finally take your rest genuinely seriously. Not as recovery from yesterday's damage, but as deliberate, intentional preparation for tomorrow's version of yourself. Yuki sleeps 7.5 hours, wakes at 5 without any alarm, and moves gently into morning. She is not extraordinary in any special way. She simply built the conditions her body actually needed. Now, before you close this out, I genuinely want you to pause and actually think this through carefully. Which one of these 5 practices is your own evening currently missing the most right now? Honestly. Is it meal timing, eating far too close to bedtime and quietly wondering why your sleep feels shallow? Is it the light, holding a bright screen inches from your face well past midnight every single night? Is it the bath, never giving your body the temperature drop signal it desperately needs to sink deeper? Is it the ritual, drifting into bed only whenever exhaustion finally wins with absolutely no consistent ending? Or is it the morning, reaching for your phone before your feet even touch the floor each day? Naming the one thing you are missing is genuinely the very first step toward actually changing it. Someone else reading this might recognize themselves instantly and feel just a little bit less alone tonight. If any part of this shifted how you think about your own sleep, share it with someone tired. She might be one earlier dinner, one dimmer lamp, and one warm cup of tea away from real rest. Take care of yourself tonight, and remember that true rest begins long before your head ever touches the pillow.